Because we've seen each other a few times, we've already, I think, really well covered how you're building America and why abundance is progressive and why you are progressive and doing abundance. So I think we have to talk about defeating fascism today.
I agree.
Now, Ezra Klein just kind of came out and threw down the gauntlet about and he starts off, I think, by saying we are in the authoritarian consolidation phase. Now, we are not going to talk today about his proposed tactics because this is not the kind of thing you do off the cuff in an instant interview reaction. We need to be thoughtful. But I take what Ezra's written and kind of thrown out, just in the last couple days, to be about less, hey, do my suggested tactics, and more it's time to get some tactics. It is go time. And one of the things I've seen people say is just that if you just write down and say aloud what has already happened this year, say in the past 5 months, 9 months, however you want to call it.
Even
it's
today,
been less than 9
even
months.
just today with a recent Supreme Court decision that just came down today.
Tell us about it.
Saying that ICE can racially profile and detain people based on their accent and if they work in manual labor. That's enough. They don't have to have evidence that somebody's here illegally or that they're undocumented. If they're maybe look like a recent immigrant, they can be taken into detention, and it's up to them then to prove otherwise. And that could take days, it could take weeks, it could take months. But they're saying that it's legal, whereas we've never done that before. Yeah. Every other precedent and lower court decisions say, no, ICE have to have a real reason, a concrete reason to take someone into detention, to stop someone who's driving, to maybe, to question them. They have to have a reason. Someone maybe has told them something, or they have some evidence that the person is here illegally. But the Supreme Court today said, no, just working in manual labor is enough. They can literally stop people who work in manual labor who have brown skin, and that's enough cause for ICE to detain them.
And of course, let's not look at any of these in isolation, right? So set that to the side here, and now let's talk about the fact that all year they have been detaining people and sending them to foreign concentration camps, as well as their new fancy domestic concentration camp without trial. And if you put the chocolate and the peanut butter together, they can pick you up just for being vaguely olive-skinned with an accent, and then they can do whatever they want with you, right? That's what those two things together are.
And the Supreme Court's just given them more license to do that. And what we've seen with a lot of these detentions is that people are separated from their attorneys. Sometimes it takes their attorneys quite a while to be able to locate them. We get people who come to our office who are immediate family members who have no idea if their relative was kidnapped or whether ICE has them. And they don't, even minors. We've even had minors who have disappeared into this system. We have parents who are the children of American citizens, where the children can't find the parents and vice versa. But not being able to see your attorney or your attorney to know where you are, or your elected representative to know where you are, is something that we should all be concerned of, because that is the definition of disappearing somebody.
And of course, their argument is if they're illegal, if they're such and such, they don't get access to these rights. But of course, that means if you can't prove that you are legal, then all of us are illegal.
And let's be clear, some of these people are not people who just appeared in this country and we don't know who they are. Yeah. They're being picked up at their own court cases, meaning these are people who are in the system, who are in the process of applying for asylum, having their cases adjudicated. We've had judges tell ICE you cannot remove this person, only to have them be removed. So these are people who are trying to go through the process legally. These are people who are, some of them are green card holders. And ICE is saying, well, you had a DUI 15 years ago, 20 years ago, so now we're going to deport you. So these are permanent legal residents, or people who are here on work visas. We just saw with this Korean battery plant where these were not people who were, let's be clear, they weren't working at a battery plant. This was a huge deal that was done to create American jobs. We didn't have the people who had the expertise to build the plant. It's a highly technical plant. There were also executives from the company here to oversee the building. They had visas. Now, some of the visas may have been the wrong kind of visa because they've been waiting for the correct visas, but they were people who were here to build a plant for Americans to work in. And they went and they arrested these people. They didn't just detain them. They literally put them into chains. You know, there's nothing that indicates that any of these people were dangerous. These were executives. These were people building a factory for American workers, and they were humiliated publicly. So these weren't people who snuck into the country. These were people who had paperwork that were given to them by our government. So what we're seeing is an incredible overstep, meant for optics, not meant for public safety. In no sense of the word were any of these individuals a danger to the public. In no sense were they people who we didn't know their identities. I mean, these are people who had some paperwork. So what's happening is it's really bad for business in this country. You know, it's bad for other countries who might want to send business here. It's certainly bad for tourism, and we've seen a huge drop in tourism, people wanting to come to the United States to go to theme parks, to go to sporting events, you know, leading up to the Olympics. That should be very concerning to us. And it's not something that's making us safer.
I mean, it is a humiliation ritual, and it is spectacle, because he's a TV producer, and that's the thing he knows about, right? I remember very early in this year, that first batch they sent to CCOT in El Salvador, you know, the footage that came out looked like the kind of thing that a year, or, you know, if you ever did that in America's past, that would be like a news company coming out with a giant expose. No, you're a Hollywood producer. They self-produced that video.
Yeah,
it was slick.
The Geneva Convention against showing prisoners of war. Yeah. The Trump administration claims that these are basically prisoners of war. That's their motivation, their justification for using the National Guard, for many of the things that they're doing. They're saying it's a national emergency, that we're being invaded. Yeah. Well, the Geneva Convention, you know, all of our conventions about warfare prohibit the use of foreign POWs in media. So Kristi Noem standing in front of people whose faces are recognizable is actually something that we're not supposed to do if we're at war, much less at peace. But these are not, there's no evidence that the majority of these people were here posing a threat or were leaders of drug cartels or anything like that. We're talking about day laborers, people that are being picked up running taco stands. And don't forget that these are people that came to this country because we've held ourselves up as a beacon of freedom around the world. They come here to escape terrible situations in other countries, sometimes oppression over their religion, their sexual orientation. There's a lot of reasons why people come to this country, fleeing the kind of foreign crime that we're afraid, that we're saying that we're trying to prevent here. These are people who were victims of drug cartels who are coming here for asylum. The United States has prided itself for 200 years of being the place that offers so much freedom and opportunity to the world that people want to come here. And it seems like this administration is trying to say, no, we're going to be just as awful and oppressive as the places you're fleeing from, so don't come. And that's not the kind of country that we want to be. We want to be that beacon of hope for the world. And yet this administration seems hell-bent on making us into the kind of place that people flee. And that's really, really awful and frightening. I mean, many of us, myself included, are the children of immigrants. My husband is an immigrant. I don't want to be a country where immigrants are saying, oh yeah, you don't want to go to the United States. It's an awful place. It's a place where they take people who are fleeing oppression and literally put them in chains and then show photos of them to the population to try to humiliate us.
We will talk a lot about the language of invasion, because I think that's a lot of their electoral ballgame, and I'd like to ask you about it. But while we're on the topic of like prisoners of war, enemy combatants, I'd be remiss if I did not mention, you know, the other day, right, somebody said to J.D. Vance on Twitter, hey, if you kill these cartel members, those are civilians, it's a war crime, and J.D. responded, I don't give a shit. Here's the thing. If J.D. Vance wanted to have a discussion about militarized non-state actors, he knows all those words. Most of my lifetime, we have been fighting a war on terror. If you wonder if cartels are fit in the legal category of a foreign military, civilians, or a terrorist organization like Al-Qaeda, I can get you 20 books from each opinion off my bookshelf. That is a legal debate. He didn't have the legal debate. He said, I don't give a shit, because he doesn't give a shit. They just think they can do whatever they want to whoever they want.